guests joining us. Governor Doug Burgum built an amazing company here in North Dakota called Great Plains Software. If you know anything about Dynamics GP, some of you actually run this software today still, even though it was built in the 80s and 90s, running your ERP. That's where technology in North Dakota, in our view, started from a software standpoint. And the reason why Bushel is here is because we're able to attract talent to the great city of Fargo and to North Dakota because there's been those to follow like Great Plains Software. So I want you to help me give a warm welcome to Governor Burgum, the governor of the greatest state and the greatest nation on earth, North Dakota.
Thank you. Thank you, Jake. Welcome to North Dakota, everybody. Raise your hands if you're not from North Dakota. Look at that. Wow. Welcome. Great to have you here. And I want to just right away give a shout out to Jake and the whole Bushel team. It's so fantastic to have this innovating, cutting edge company here that's helping revolutionize ag, and today with the announcement on digital payments, fantastic things. So if you wouldn't mind joining me, I'm so thrilled about their success. But let's give it up for the whole Bushel team. Thanks for everything you guys are doing. Jake mentioned that I had a background in software and building global software companies here in North Dakota. That's true, but how many of you work in the grain elevator business? Okay, so that's most of you. So that was that's our family business, and I think the family business is represented here. Arthur Companies somewhere right here. John's over here. Team. Oh, we got JT's here too. So anyway, this is a family business started in 1906 in Arthur, North Dakota. Fourth generation now. My nephew James is the CEO. We're and obviously facing all the same challenges you are. And I think it's accurate to say that the first customer. Jake? First customer was Arthur Companies, our family business. So I'm not just here, I'm just not some interloping governor coming in. We bought this stuff. It works better when you have more customers. So thank you guys also for buying it. They get a bigger R&D team. We all win when they get scale. But I would say that having grown up in that business, in the elevator business, I learned a lot of great lessons. And one of the things that I learned from my family working at that elevator was that if you're in the grain elevator business, your customers don't really churn. We had a celebration in 2006 in the hometown gym in Arthur. My older brother was still alive then, my cousin Rick. We stood on the stage and we had the ledger from the 1920s from the elevator company, and we went through the names of the people that were in the room: the Zimmermans, the Stibbies, the Johnsons, the Olsons, the Iwans, the Steffuses, that had been the customers in the 1920s, and all of their grandkids and great-grands were sitting in the audience, customers today. When you're in that business for that long, where the land, gets passed down from family to family, you've got to build trust with your customers. And that's what we did that was what we had. We had that in every orientation for every team member we hired at Great Plains Software. We're in the trust business, and we're in this thing for, in grain elevator, it's multiple generations of family. If you're in the software business like Bushel, you're in it for multiple generations of technology. You've got to keep bringing your customers with you, and I know that that DNA exists within Bushel. These guys are off to a fantastic start, and part of it is because they've hired some Great Plains folks too along the way to help join them here. But it is. At the time that we got acquired by Microsoft, we had 2,000 people working for Great Plains, 1,200 in Fargo, 400 rest of the world, and 400 rest of North America. All 2,000 of them became the Business Solutions Division at Microsoft. I stayed there for 7 years and built that global business. Satya Nadella, who was one of my direct reports for that 7 years, is now the CEO of Microsoft. There was about 80 kids from the Great Plains. I call them kids because we hired them all out of college, that left here and went to Microsoft. And became executives at Microsoft. At one time, the chief people officer, the chief financial officer, and the CEO were all Great Plains people. That's when we said the Great Plains takeover of Microsoft was complete. But we had but I'm just saying again, part of all of you come from the heart heartland of America where you run your businesses. I understand the culture that you're all in, but that's the same culture that's driving and building a company like Bushel. And it's the reason why we were able to be so successful in this town, and that's why Bushel's being so successful. So I had a full stack schedule today. I think they asked a while ago. They said I couldn't make it. I told the team today I think we can squeeze it in. I'm going to shoot over there and just say hi and welcome you all to North Dakota. And that's what I want to do, is extend my gratitude to all of you for what you're doing for yourselves, for your customers, and in what you're doing for agriculture, because agriculture is so important to our nation, and there's so many exciting things happening. You know, right here in North Dakota, we're at the cutting edge of really connecting the ag industry and the energy industry, and doing that in a way where we can also be in a position to help decarbonize the world, which is what investors want. Doesn't matter what you think or believe about, you know, carbon or political battles around that. The capital is flowing towards investments where you can have decarbonized, particularly fuels. And I know that we've got some folks in the room here that are working on we recently announced a soybean crush plant in North Dakota. We'd become a very large producer of soybeans, very large producer of corn in our state, not as big as the Corn Belt, but a lot more than when I was a kid. But we didn't have any value add processing here. But what switched about 18 months ago is soybeans, of course, became driven by the oil market, not by the meal market. All of you guys that trade understand that. And what is happening, and now we're going to have, you know, 2 crush plants in North Dakota, but we get to add value to a soybean because it's being crushed. That soybean oil is going to go down the rail to Dickinson, North Dakota, into a refinery that had been shut down to make green diesel and sold into markets at you know, $1 a gallon of premium. So we get to add value to that twice in North Dakota, eastern North Dakota and western North Dakota. We've got multiple companies right now that want to come into southeastern North Dakota to do sustainable aviation fuel. And again, for those of you that are in the ag business, then I would say you're in the whole effort to decarbonize fuel. You know, one of the most exciting projects of ag meets energy in North Dakota right now is the Summit Carbon Pipeline coming out of Iowa. It's going to pull CO2 off of 31 ethanol, biodiesel, and fertilizer plants in southern, you know, Minnesota, South Dakota, Iowa, eastern North Dakota, and come out to western North Dakota, where we have the jackpot of geology. We've got the ability to store all of the nation's CO2. I'll say it again. We can store all the nation's CO2 for the next 50 years. We have the storage capacity, proven out storage capacity, 7,000 feet underground in a 300-foot strip of sandstone down there that's very porous, that we can put, if you pressurize CO2 gas, it becomes a liquid, you pump it down hole, it stays down there. 252 billion tons of CO2, 252 billion tons. The nation, U.S., produces about 5 billion tons of man-made CO2 a year. So if you could get it here, we could store it for the next 50 years. Now, we'll have an energy transition in the next 50 years, and it will be like we are right now. Generally, we're producing less CO2 than we did the year before, but we've got the ability to do that. And what does that mean for farmers, and what does it mean for your business? It means that if you've got people that are raising corn that's going into ethanol, and ethanol is decarbonized, and that percentage that goes in the tank right now, 10 to 15%, oil industry has fought that. They never wanted 15, they didn't want 10. The oil industry wants 100% of that gallon of gas being, you know, fossil fuel petroleum. What happened about 3 weeks ago when I was at an announcement for this project? Harold Hamm, the largest oil developer in North Dakota. North Dakota has always been right there at the number 2 in the nation behind Texas in terms of oil production, and he's the largest in our state. Harold Hamm put $250 million of cash into a CO2 pipeline for ethanol. Why would an oil guy put $250 million of hard cash into a pipeline? Because he realizes the battle is over between oil and gas and ethanol. Oil and gas and ethanol are on team internal combustion engine. The opposite is, hey, do you want to be on team EV, electric vehicles? Electric vehicles are going to need 500,000 charging stations in America. How are we going to build those? With government subsidies. How are we going to build electric cars? With government subsidies. How are we going to power them? With electricity, subsidized government subsidies through, you know, solar and wind. The subsidies that go into that EV is over $1,000 a ton. Right now in Congress, a bill called 45Q, it pays someone like Summit $50 a ton for every CO2 they put in the ground. 50 versus 1,000. One where you can actually measure how much you're putting in the ground because you can measure with a pump. The other one is some calculation of, well, if we drive the EV, we probably weren't driving an internal combustion, and depending on how much we drove it, then maybe we would have saved some carbon. It's a calculation as opposed to real CO2 coming out of the air. I'm betting on economics, not on ideology, not on politics. I'm betting on economics that this nation will wake up and figure out that agriculture plus energy is going to be the solution. If you want to solve it, and you want to solve it economically, and you think that's a problem to get rid of CO2, the people that can do it are sitting in this room and have the solutions now to do it, and we don't have to wait 20 or 30 years for that transition to happen. And it's happening right now in North Dakota. We just permitted the largest CO2 sequestration area in the world, 40 square miles, larger than a township, and that will take this 18 million tons a year that's coming off of that pipeline and put it in the ground. 18 million tons. Remember, I said we could store 252 billion. So tough when you have that many zeros, but we aren't even scratching the surface with the largest project in the world of CO2 storage. Does not even scratch the surface of what we can store underground in North Dakota. So this is an exciting first start and first step. It's going to mean a tremendous thing for anybody who's raising corn in those states, who's hauling it to those ethanol plants, is going to see an improvement in their payment. Or if they're a co-op member of that ethanol plant's going to be making more money because of the premium it's going to get for its fuels. And so ag plus energy, tied with what we do in North Dakota, always, Lieutenant Governor Brent Sanford, myself, innovation, not regulation. Innovation is forward-looking. Innovation is how do we solve the problem for tomorrow. Regulation is, oh, we think that's a problem. Let's create a bunch of regulations and try to run that thing out of business. Let's try to shut that thing down. Let's get rid of our base load electricity because we think it's coming from the wrong source, as opposed to how do we innovate to decarbonize that base load, which we're also doing in North Dakota. If you want stable grid to run your businesses and run your farms, we need base load. You can't get that from intermittent supply. North Dakota on the cutting edge of decarbonizing base load and providing that to the rest of the nation. So a lot of exciting things that are happening here. This is a state that's built on innovation and technology. Companies like Bushel, we love, we support them, we get behind them. We want to see them grow. We're loving the fact that we got customers here from all these different states in the great city of Fargo and in North Dakota right now. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for believing in Bushel. If you're having challenge with the products, talk to Jake, and because that's what this team is here for. They got the same attitude we did. The toughest customer is the best one, because if you can solve their problem, you're going to have a lot of happy ones. And so I know they're really committed to working through everything they have to make sure that you guys are happy, satisfied customers. So with that, congratulations on the launch on the digital payment. Very exciting next step for Bushel. Thank you all for being here. Give it up to my hometown team of Arthur Companies over here that's making it happen. Customer number one for Bushel. And by the way, that is the place where I learned how to shovel grain on a hot day in August. It's where I learned how to, save myself when I was getting attacked by a bin sweep. It's where I learned about you had to tape your bell bottom shut in the 1970s so the mice didn't run up your pant leg when you're trying to look cool when you're coming to work coming to work every day to shovel grain. And I also learned that if you're the youngest of the youngest in a family business with multiple families in the business, sometimes being the youngest of the youngest, you're on the bottom of the chain, and there's literally no job in the office, in the elevator, when you're the youngest, and you say, I got to figure out something to do something else. And the something else I figured out to do was my dad had passed away when I was a freshman in high school. I inherited 160 acres of farmland. I mortgaged that. I put it into to Great Plains. That was the startup capital. I literally bet the farm. Probably wouldn't have done that if I'd have been the oldest one, because I would have had a cushy job at the elevator. And maybe none of us would think here. But when you get pushed out the bottom, sometimes you got to innovate. So that's worked for me. But anyway, let's give it up for all the risk takers, all the innovators. Let's hear it for Bushel. Have a great conference. Thank you.